Alisa Eleanor Rosenbrook was born in early June of 2025 in Wisconsin. She was, by all accounts, deeply wanted. Her parents, Eric Rosenbrook and Leda Margaretha, had tried for years to have a child together, and there had been multiple miscarriages along the way. When Alisa finally arrived via C-section, she was, by every indication, a miracle baby her parents had fought hard for. Eric was a former U.S. Marine and avionics technician turned electrician, originally from Baraboo, Wisconsin. Her mother, Leda, was an Indonesian-born woman who had come to the United States on a K-1 visa in 2018. She had a half-brother, Alessandro, and 3 older half-sisters, Tennille, Tasha, and Jenica. Alisa Rosenbrook only lived to be 5 weeks old. And to understand what happened to her, you have to go back to a story that started long before she arrived on this earth.
At an estimated 42 million people, Jakarta, Indonesia is the most densely populated city on Earth. And because of that, it's no surprise it has a reputation for being very congested, especially the traffic. It's not the most walkable city, and it is hot and humid here year-round, but it's known for having an incredible food scene, especially on a budget. You can get some of the best food in the world here. Leda Margaretha was born here on May 12, 1989. By her own account, she grew up privileged. She's talked about it to anyone who would listen to her, bragging about her family's wealth, a life of luxury in one of Jakarta's exclusive neighborhoods. She's frequently described herself as a model and an actress. In 2009, then 19-year-old Leda represented South Sumatra at the Miss Indonesia pageant, winning in the Miss Healthy Body category. She claimed to have attended med school and earned a bachelor's in medicine from Universitas Pelita Harapan, one of Indonesia's private universities. Her Instagram bio labeled herself as a doctor, a gamer, a vlogger, and a cosplayer. She always was marketing herself as a woman of many talents. But for those who encountered Leda, they were never quite sure how much of what she said was true. In September of 2012, Leda married a man named Daniel while she had been working as a teacher in Japan. In June of 2013, she gave birth to her son, Alessandro. But the marriage did not last, and by the time Leda crossed paths with Eric Rosenbrook, she was a single mother in her mid-20s who had hoped to continue her medical studies in the United States.
Eric Rosenbrook was a decent enough man, ground down by the ordinary difficulties of middle-class American life. He worked a steady job commuting daily to Madison from his home in Baraboo, a small city of about 12,000 people, best known perhaps for being the birthplace of the Ringling Brothers Circus. Eric was 40 years old when he posted a personal ad on an international dating website. He had 3 daughters from a previous marriage. He was divorced, and he was lonely. Leda saw his ad while browsing the site and reached out, and they clicked almost instantly, or so the story goes, and spent 7 months communicating via video chat before meeting in person in Japan, where Leda was still living and working. Eric flew across the Pacific Ocean to meet a woman he had fallen in love with through a screen. After just 48 hours together in person, he proposed, and she said yes, and she had an idea: 90 Day Fiancé. The TLC reality series had, by 2018, become a cultural institution of its own kind, a show that people watched simultaneously in fascination and horror, following couples working through the K-1 visa process, which allows a foreign national to enter the United States on the condition that they marry their American partner within 90 days. The show had an extraordinary talent for finding people whose relationships were destined to implode on camera. Eric was reluctant and later shared that he hadn't watched TLC in probably a decade and that it was a rather big shock when the network accepted their application. But Leda was excited. She wanted to be on television. Eric admitted that his family greeted the news with eye rolls and groans.
Season 6 of 90 Day Fiancé premiered in 2018, and Eric and Leda were, by the accounts of many, must-watch television. As reality TV usually goes, it wasn't for the right reasons. From the moment that Leda's plane landed, it was easy to see that something was clearly wrong here. Eric lived in a modest, not very well-kept 2-bedroom apartment in Baraboo. For Leda, a woman who had spent years describing a life of luxury staffed by maids, this was apparently a catastrophic disappointment for her. Cameras captured Laida's reaction when she first saw the apartment. She was visibly disgusted. The mess, the furniture, the general state of the place, none of it met her standards. And her parents and sister who visited didn't help either. They disapproved of Eric and thought she deserved far better in life than what Eric had to offer. But Laida didn't immediately leave. She told Eric she wanted new furniture. When he hesitated, she threatened to go back to Indonesia. She wanted a maid, despite the fact that he clearly couldn't afford one. But one other thing that was clearly concerning was the fact that she was furious that Eric had been paying child support since his divorce, saying that the money he sent his kids was a drain on what should have been theirs. The apartment and the money issues weren't the worst of Laida's issues, however. Eric had a teenage daughter named Tasha who had been living in the apartment. She had been paying her own share of the rent while attending college, and by all accounts, she was a responsible person. Laida wanted her gone. And this is where the season became ugly. Week after week, cameras captured arguments between Laida and Tasha. It was hard to watch, especially because it wasn't just the fact that Laida voiced her dislike of Eric's own daughter. She went so far as to give Eric an ultimatum. Kick Tasha out of the apartment, or Laida would return to Indonesia. Eric chose Laida. He justified this to the cameras, saying he could repair the relationship with his daughter later, but he didn't want to lose out on the love of his life forever. It didn't make him look any better. Even Eric's own father asked him in so many words what the hell was he doing, and that he himself would have never kicked out his daughter in Eric's shoes. Tasha was forced out of the apartment she had been helping to pay for. Laida moved in with her son Alessandro, and the two of them now occupied what had been Eric's daughter's home. Two of Eric's three daughters were so upset they didn't come to their father's wedding. The season's tell-all reunion special, both Eric and Tasha were in tears over the state of their relationship. It was clear the damage had been done between them, and Laida felt justified in it. Fan backlash was what you might expect. Laida became one of the most despised figures in 90 Day Fiancé history, a franchise not exactly lacking in unlikable characters. On November 30th, 2017, Eric and Laida had already married in a ceremony in Jakarta.
As fans dug deeper into Laida's background, the questions just started piling up. She claimed to be a doctor, but had she actually practiced medicine in Indonesia? She claimed her family was enormously wealthy, but the evidence for that was thin, and many viewers concluded that she had exaggerated or fabricated her affluent upbringing as a way to justify her demands and disdain in America. She claimed to have worked as a model and an actress as well, and these claims too were largely unverifiable. Then came the car crash theory. Online communities began circulating claims that were never officially confirmed, that Laida had been involved in a fatal car accident in Indonesia and had fled the country to escape the legal fallout. Laida denied this, arguing that any criminal record would have prevented her from receiving a US visa. But she never fully put the rumors to rest, and the secrecy around her Indonesian past continued to fuel speculation.
What the cameras did catch was a clear pattern of behavior. Laida making demands and threatening to leave if those demands weren't met, and Eric folded every single time. She so badly didn't want his daughters to receive child support that she went as far as to pressure him to terminate his parental rights. He thankfully didn't do this, but she wanted a lifestyle like her parents gave her back home, and when it didn't come fast enough, she threatened to go back to Jakarta. After the season aired, Laida was vocal on social media about the hate she received. In her mind, she was a misunderstood victim of an unfair smear campaign by 90 Day Fiancé fans. She and Eric eventually quit the series, refusing to participate in future spin-offs or reunion specials. They moved on, or at least they tried to. But in 2020, Eric and Laida bought their first home together in Wisconsin. Laida claimed she had completed some form of medical studies, though skeptics on social media questioned, and continue to question, whether her credentials were even real. She also launched an OnlyFans account promoting adult cosplay content under the alias Aya Co. For that account was eventually deactivated. And then the legal troubles began.
The feud between Laida and Tasha Rosenbrook did not end when the camera stopped rolling. In February of 2019, Leda was granted a 4-year restraining order against Eric's daughter, preventing Tasha from contacting Leda or making any statements on social media that could be characterized as antagonizing her.
This is one of the times I was saying earlier how, sorry, my leg is cramping. Where I'd be out with my family or something and I'd get a phone call saying, you need to get your on Facebook. And I did. So I was out with my mom and my sister. We were like in bump nowhere. I think we were going like yard sale shopping, like just going at yard sales or somewhere. And we were in like bump nowhere. And I get a call from one of my LARP friends. I was like, what's up? And he's like, you need to get on Facebook and you need to get on Facebook now. And I was like, sweet Lordy, why? And he's like, because your stepmom just posted your medical history all over Facebook. And I was like, I'm sorry? So she had commented, I think it was before I found out I had mono. It was right around there because I was starting to feel sick. That's another thing, like, when you see my room in that scene, it was messier when it was on TV because Lita had already started, like, going through my stuff and, like, throwing things around. However, I had to sleep on the floor because they took my futon mattress, so...
And then it came out that it was actually Eric who had filled out the paperwork himself. He admitted this in an interview with In Touch Weekly, claiming that he did it because Leda didn't know the process, not because he agreed with the decision. He insisted that Tasha's own behavior during the court hearing had convinced the judge to grant the 4-year term. Whatever the explanation, the result was the same. A father had helped file a restraining order against his own teenage daughter on behalf of his new wife. More than 5,000 people signed a Change.org petition calling for Leda's deportation. And yet, in a strange twist, Leda and Tasha, who had by now changed her name to Alari Stark, eventually reconciled. In April of 2024, Leda posted a selfie with Alari on Instagram at Alari's wedding, writing, "Congratulations, bride-to-be." They bonded reportedly over their shared passion for cosplay and arts and crafts. It seemed to be a genuine reconciliation, or appeared to be. By then, Leda and Eric's real troubles had only just begun.
On October 5th, 2023, the Portage, Wisconsin Police Department received a call from the owners of Loggerhead Deco. An internal investigation had uncovered that one of their temps, who was working as a bookkeeper, had allegedly been using the company's bank account information to make fraudulent payments and unauthorized withdrawals. That temp was Leda. She was arrested and charged with theft from a business setting, fraudulent data alteration, forgery, and wire fraud against a financial institution. She pled not guilty. No surprise, interest in Leda spun up again, with 90-day fan communities buzzing about her. The woman claiming to be a wealthy doctor from a prominent family was now accused of embezzling money from a small business. Surprisingly, the charges were dismissed in December of 2024. Her attorney declared the matter resolved, but it would not be the end of her legal saga, not even close.
If the dismissal of the Loggerhead Deco charges seemed like a fresh start, what followed obliterated that hope entirely. In January of 2025, Leda was charged with mistreating animals, DV, and bail jumping. The animal mistreatment and DV charges painted a troubling picture of what was happening inside that house. The animal mistreatment charge goes back to January 30th of 2025. An anonymous caller reached out to the sheriff's department to ask for a welfare check on the couple's Siberian husky named Appa. The caller claimed that he saw Appa get hit with a laptop. According to the police report, the caller was worried that she will hurt the dog again and was concerned that Leda was there in the house with the dog. However, when asked if he had evidence that Appa was in danger, the caller responded, "Forget it, ciao," and no welfare check was conducted. That same month, when Leda was arrested, she told the police she was pregnant. She also told them she'd been diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, OCD, and depression. She said that she was 6 months along. Sometime later, deputies responded after Leda reported being bitten by Appa. Police noted visible puncture wounds and a cut on her hand when they arrived. Leda told the officers that the dog had been fasting after being neutered and had previously displayed food aggression. To be fair, I'd probably bite Leda too. According to the report, she asked whether the dog could be taken to the shelter because she no longer wanted it, although they left Appa at the house. In July of 2025, Leda was arrested again, this time for bail jumping. 2 additional felony charges of identity theft were filed against her in September of 2025 after she allegedly used banking information from a second business to make unauthorized charges. And then, in January of 2026, Wisconsin prosecutors filed 24 felony charges. 24. Here's the breakdown. 7 counts of bail jumping, 6 counts of wire fraud against a financial institution, 10 counts of forgery, and 1 count of theft between $10,000 and $100,000 from a business. The alleged crimes spanned between November of 2023 to March of 2024. On January 5, 2026, Leda appeared at the Juneau County Justice Center and pled not guilty to at least some of the charges. A court hearing was scheduled for February 18th of 2026. Her attorney, Taylor Hart, denied the allegations. Meanwhile, a separate court filing told the real story. Eric and Leda had filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy on December 26 of 2025. Eric and Leda had listed between $100,000 and $500,000 in assets and liabilities, with $351,680 in debts. Their combined monthly income was listed at $7,210. Eric had been working as an electrician, and Leda had worked at Walgreens and at a towing company. The alleged wealthy Jakarta heiress, it turned out, was facing bankruptcy in Wisconsin.
By the summer of 2025, Eric and Leda's marriage was falling apart. They were both separated. Leda was living in her own apartment with Alessandro and now with baby Alisa, who was born in June of 2025. July 4th of 2025 is where our story comes to a head. That morning, Eric showed up at Leda's apartment. According to police, he had been drinking. Leda reportedly found him passed out in his car outside the building, and things escalated. Their 5-week-old daughter, awakened by the shouting, was in Leda's arms when Eric asked to hold her. Leda refused, and Eric responded by slapping her while his own baby was in her arms. This easily risked Leda falling over or dropping Alisa. Eric was arrested that day on charges of misdemeanor domestic battery and domestic disorderly conduct. He appeared in court on July 7th and pled not guilty. Hours after that arrest was made, a 911 call was placed. Alisa was unresponsive at Leda's apartment. Paramedics transported Alisa first to Gunderson Mound View Hospital before transferring her to UW Health American Family Children's Hospital in Madison, where she was worked on by a team of specialists. For 5 days, she held on. But on July 9th, 2025, at 12:53 in the afternoon, Alisa Eleanor Rosenbrook died. She was a mere 5 weeks old. Eric announced the news on Facebook the following day, writing, and I quote, "It destroys me and shatters my world to announce that over the weekend tragedy has struck. Yesterday at 12:53 p.m. after 5 days on life support, my beloved daughter, little Alisa Eleanor Rosenbrook, slipped the Shirley bonds to join her grandfather Tom. I do not want well wishes or questions. I will not answer anything, read or reply. I ask just for prayers for her." On July 5th, the day Alisa was taken to the hospital, Leda reportedly posted a message before quickly deleting it, and it said, "Dear God, you can take away my life, but do not take away my daughter's life. She was just born. And God, if this is going to be my lesson to appreciate life since I've been struggling with thoughts, then take away my trauma. Help me find peace. Help me forgive." Later, in a recorded statement, Leda spoke about what she believed had happened, pointing the finger squarely at Eric. She noted that when the doctors told her there was a fracture to Alisa's rib, she suspected it was related to Eric slapping her. She was careful to say she wasn't accusing him directly. It was very clear what she was implying. Eric maintained that he had never struck Alisa.
Law enforcement didn't wait long to open an investigation. The Adams County Health and Human Services Department released a formal statement. It laid out what investigators had found. On July 5th, 2025, a report came in about a 1-month-old infant taken to the hospital with multiple injuries. After she died, law enforcement launched a criminal investigation. The findings were grim. The medical examiner's office in Adams County, Wisconsin, determined that Alisa Eleanor Rosenbrook's death was, and this is the language used in the official report, non-accidental. And there was more. Their initial assessment found, in their own words, a preponderance of the evidence to substantiate maltreatment of physical abuse to the infant by the mother. The report also noted that authorities had previously been called to Lada's home in June of 2025, just weeks before Alisa's death, after a CPS report came in alleging neglect of Lada's 12-year-old son, Alessandro. That report was ultimately unsubstantiated, but with everything that followed, the timing is hard to shake. Lada's attorney, Taylor Hart, issued a statement denying all wrongdoing, which read, "There's been no formal cause and manner of death issued in the initial assessment," adding that Lada denies any allegations of wrongdoing. He noted that the couple was appealing the finding. The attorney also described Lada as extremely distraught, someone who loved her baby beyond measure and was struggling with the emotions of losing her child. He emphasized that over the past 2 years, the couple had tried desperately to have a child, suffering multiple miscarriages before Alisa was born. In July of 2025, after Alisa's death, Lada filed for legal separation from Eric, citing too many domestic abuse events. She was granted a restraining order against her husband.
Yeah. It's not that bad as before, but it's still there. So there was a one time that I actually stopped at the gas station, and then the lady, the cashier, says ma'am, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. I think she can notice my bruise, so I don't want people to notice that because I'm not always using sunglasses. So obviously any people or any who can realize the bruises. So yeah, I mean, it's not that hurt. It's still hurt, but it's not that hurt anymore. And then the wrist, it's gone. The bruises on my wrist is gone. So yeah. So guess what? Motherfucker finally got arrested. It was last night, I think. I don't know. So the police or the sheriff came in today, gave me the paperwork, and asking me if I request a no contact order to be enforced or no. And hell yeah, I want it to be enforced. I'm already thinking about filing a restraining order as well. Extending the enforce of the no contact order. But I will request somehow because I'm technically managing his schedule and everything going on. I will request if there's any chance that we can still communicate, but through email, because I want everything to be traced, to be documented, to be having evidence, of the communication, so he can no longer lie or made up. You know what I'm saying? I mean, not texting, just email, but I want every email to be CC.
Separately, as part of her bail jumping case, conditions on her release included a $2,000 signature bond, a ban on travel outside of Wisconsin, and a requirement to hand over her passport. Eric, meanwhile, told reporters that despite the separation filing, he and Lada were still married and that they had not yet decided whether they would try for another child.
Eric and Lada were not prepared to accept the official findings. In March of 2026, they hired their own private medical examiner to challenge the Adams County autopsy. Eric claimed he didn't agree with the conclusion that Alisa's death was non-accidental and that the expert they hired believed the original autopsy had been done improperly. According to Eric, their expert found that certain key steps hadn't been completed and that the report failed to clearly establish when the fracture had occurred. Their argument was that the fracture may have occurred not as the result of violence, but during Alisa's birth. She'd been delivered by C-section approximately 5 weeks before her death. A rib fracture cited in the report, Eric argued, could have also happened during CPR. Eric also went after CPS, calling it, in his words, the definition of fascism. He added, "As far as CPS goes, they're a hammer and every parent is a nail." He claimed that the Adams County Sheriff's Department hadn't found Lada at fault. He He also said that when they asked Health and Human Services to look at more evidence, that apparently the department wasn't interested.
As of the date of this recording in April of 2026, Eric and Leida's legal situation remains completely unresolved. The investigation into Alisa's death is open, and no criminal charges have been filed in her death. The official autopsy results still haven't been made public. Both Eric and Leida have denied wrongdoing in connection with their baby's death and are both considered innocent until proven guilty. Leida's attorney said she's appealing the findings. What we can say is this. What happened to Alisa Rosenbrook got massive attention in the 90 Day Fiancé community, which followed her parents for years. The online reaction was swift and deeply felt. Many of the same people who had watched Leida arrive in Baraboo as a reality television villain were confronted with something a lot darker than bad TV. Alisa was born in June of 2025. She was 5 weeks old when she died. Her father asked for prayers for her, and her mother asked for God not to take her. But neither of those things was enough to save her.